Okay, whilst the others are still joining in, we will just go through what we have to do today. Right, this we are going to start by now. I think you have already received the topics and the tunes that we will be discussing today. This is one of those, I would say, the most important area a banker should know and should be aware about. And I must also say, with my experience, this is an area where most of the bankers are not, most of them, not all, most of the bankers are not fully aware of as to its uh, uh, then the legal scope, effects of this. Right, it's none other than negotiable instruments. I can still see people logging in. I don't want, because this is quite an important area and also a comparatively lengthy area. When you compare with the other topics that you will be going through in this course, right? Let's see. Right. I think I took one class on with regard to this particular course with you all on electronic transactions. I hope you all are aware of it. The take home in that is in your memories, because that is again an area which is likely to have a main question in your exams, electronic transactions. And today, of course, it goes without saying, negotiable instruments and law of negotiable instruments confirms to a larger part of this syllabus, right? We will go through this law related to negotiable instruments. But before that, you all know by now, I think you all know who I am. My name is Rangali Enige. I think that is there anyway. I've been with certain banks for some time, and now I'm mainly litigating a private practitioner, right? And let me tell you about this topic, which is quite an interesting area because of its inherent complexities as well as the simplicities involved in the drafting of this particular law. But before going into all these technical areas,
Why
you
are
can
you telling you no?
mute your mic, whoever is on unmute.
Telling you no. Class is going. Big.
Can you mute,
Wait,
please?
Shakila, wait.
Right, thank you. Now, I want you all to interact with me. I will be asking some simple questions. Some of you all, or most of you all are working in banks at the moment, and the others are, of course, looking forward to. Can any one of you all tell me what are the different payment methods? Different payment methods that you come across in a financial environment, payment methods. I will give you one, right? I will give you one. Cash is one way of doing that. What are the other ways? You can either unmute and tell me, or you can also type in the chat box. Right, let's see. Online payments, checks, what else? Mobile payments. Yes, come on. Bankers. I need you to be specific. Cards. When you say cards, Rashmi, what do you mean by cards? Debit or credit cards? Fine. What else? PayPal, yes. SEFTs. Gihani, write down now, type down now, very soon. What does CEFTS or SEFT denotes? SWIFT, yes, SEFTs, Gihani. Others? Slips. Gavishka, what does SLIP stands for? Minoli, there is nothing as RGTS, there is RTGS, real transfer gross settlement. And it's dead now. Ashain Tilakaratna, SEFTs, Coleman, electronic fund transfer switch. SEFTs, good. What else? What are the other methods? ATM payments, good. Come on, you have to be on the wall, being bankers. There are so many things, so many other things that you have not mentioned here. See, it's not only about reading the TUT and by-hearting it and just those who have a good memory just reproducing it in the exam. That's not the intention of this class. That's not the intention of this program, neither the institute. Know the banking sector in Sri Lanka. What we expect is to produce this material that is you, which has something in your head with relevant to this, where you can apply this in the real world. Promissory notes. Yes. Promissory notes. What else? I have nearly 60 in this class, so not enough. Pay orders, good. Keep them coming in. If it's wrong, we'll get it corrected. That you don't have to worry about that. So what else? Care to share, Minoli, what is SSDS for the benefit of others? Negotiable bills, good. Order bills. Now we are going into variants of negotiable instruments. Can anyone tell me out of, now there are so many other things, right? We will go on to that, the different types of payment methods, etc. What is the, if I to ask you a question, somebody to ask you a question, what is the most, in your personal experience, the most common, the most common fund, what do you call, medium of exchange of currency or whatever? Which is the most common in today's card payments? Okay, right. So many card payments, yes, and the usage of cash is slowly diminishing. Sri Lanka, yes, but in other countries, when you go to Europe and all that part of the world, especially, the usage of currency is very, very minimal, right? Now, this concept of negotiability and the negotiable instruments, unlike other laws, right? This started off with a different setup altogether. Now, by now, you have done a couple of classes into this law course, banking law course. What are the sources of law? Right? We discussed this I think you might have, or most probably have discussed about this. What are the different sources of law, in your opinion, or what you have learned, rather? Sources of law. Moolarambha, Niti. Another. Acts. What else?
Meow, meow. Cat.
What else? Acts, ordinances, etc. Now, you would remember, you would recall, majority of these laws and acts of parliaments, ordinances, rules, regulations, gazettes. These are kind of laws, so to speak. But majority of them evolved with certain customs and practices. End of the day, we come back to the question as to what do you mean by law. Law is a set of rules and regulations, principles that majority of a particular community agree to adapt to, or agree to adhere to, agree to be compliant with, right? So majority of them. And what is right and what is wrong, these are separate areas in the study of law called jurisprudence. Area of law, areas where people, a particular community, if they deem a particular act, when I mean by an act, it's an action, right, as a good thing, or a particular deed as a good thing. What is good and bad is again subjective. They say, okay, we will follow practicing this good thing. But that particular good thing which they consider as good may not be good in another community, right? So that's why there are certain differences and many variants of certain laws. But all in all, there are certain basic norms in all of the laws in the world, right? For common good, right? As humans, we consider certain basic things. We are all on in one page, right? So, for example, thou shalt not kill somebody. Everybody thinks killing is bad, or considers rather killing is bad. So that is one area. That's how this law, the subject, and this whole concept of law originated. Thereafter, it went on to develop from that step to the next step. And in certain trades and industries, certain people adopted and practice in doing certain things in a particular way for a period of time. When I say over a period of time, I'm talking about decades and decades and hundreds of years. And after doing that, it's, you see, it's more than a law. It becomes part of your life. It becomes part of you, right? Doing certain things, which not only you started, but it has been started and was practicing for a period of time from generation to generations. We call them customs and practices. Even today, we have certain customs and practices. Thereafter, so when there are disputes, obviously where there is a society where there are so many people, there's so many trade things happening, there will be disputes. That's part of the human nature, right? If there are no disputes, that means that economy is dead, or very much close to inactive status. So of course there should be disputes. When there are disputes, the judiciary or the court structure comes into play, and then they resolve disputes according to what? According to those acts of parliaments, according to those regulations, the laws at hand, and of course the customs and practices comes into play. Now, the negotiable instruments, or the the whole concept of negotiable instruments did not start yesterday or very recently. It was there for over a period of time. You have heard the word saying, need is the mother of all inventions. So, good old days. When I say good old days, I'm talking about early 1800s, right? The merchants. This whole concept of negotiability and negotiable instruments erupted and started off as a requirement which they had those days, right? Now, in trades, right? Belandame ආනුසංගිකව ඇතිවෙච්ච අවශ්‍යතාවයන් හා සම්බන්ධව තමයි මේ negotiable instruments විනිමය බිල් ආඥා පනත ඉවර වුණාට මේ අවශ්‍යතාවය පටන් ගත්තේ ඒ කාලේ. For an example, let's say there are two traders. One is in Sri Lanka, other one is in the US, right? The one in Sri Lanka exports certain, let's say, tea to the US, or let's say not US, we'll say Turkey, right? They export tea. We here in Sri Lanka, we exported tea to Turkey. So in that particular transaction, what requires is, once that person exported tea from Sri Lanka to Turkey, the buyer in Turkey should give certain monies to the person in Sri Lanka, right? So he has to do that, and that's the simple transaction. Then there is another person in Sri Lanka who has imported certain things from that person who bought tea, which I told you earlier. So the tea exporter, there should be a receivable from the tea buyer in Turkey. And I told you the third party. That third party, the tea buyer in Turkey has some receivables. And when I say receivable, the third party owes money to the tea buyer. So in a normal transaction, what happens? The tea buyer sends money to the tea export here in Sri Lanka. The third party is in Turkey, not in Sri Lanka, where the tea export, if I can write it down, it would be more clearer. So A, right? A is tea exporter. B is the tea, right? Okay. Let's say C, who had business transactions with A and owes, right, with A, and A owes money to C. This is the scenario. In a normal scenario, what happens is B should pay or send money to Sri Lanka to pay A. Thereafter, A should send money to T, who is in Turkey, to settle their transaction. So this is the normal scenario, right? But what happens with bills of exchange? There, what happens is A writes a bill of exchange. Rather, C writes a bill of exchange and send it to Sri Lanka, and he endorses it and give it to C, who is in Turkey. And once he presents that to A, they settle their payment. What happens is Now, the good old days, I'm not talking about, this is just an example of how it works. I took a closest example as in Sri Lanka and Turkey, let's say the UK and any other country, France. I'm talking about so many olden days, right? The transportation was very much by sea voyage, and it took a long time to send goods or money from one country to another country, right? And in transit, there was a risk of pirates and stealing, and then the monies or whatever getting destroyed. So they came up with this method of simplifying this, right? Simplifying this whole matter, which the same concept we do even today without any change or deviation by those payment methods which you just mentioned. Card payments, credit cards, debit cards, RTGS, real-time gross settlement, slips payments, Sri Lanka interbank payment system, SEFTs, common electronic fund transfers, which all these, the principle is the same, right? And negotiable instruments, the principle is the same. They do not go the exact route of the transaction, but they look at the balance, effective balance, and how you need to balance it out at the end of the day. So that's the whole what you call origin and the need of negotiable instruments, right? The term negotiability and this instrument, which we call it, right, of so many types, we will see. Now you understand how this all originated, right? I think you all have your tutes with you. I'm not going to put the tute on, just replication of work, right? If you don't understand, please do ask me or post the question wherever I can see what it is, right? Now, what is the nature of a negotiable instrument? These things, if you want to write it down, you can write it down. The nature of a negotiable instruments are, there should be, if you are to do something which is different from what you've been doing, of course, there should be benefits in doing so, right? And there should be characteristics, certain, what do you call, behaviors of that new system which you are going to adopt to. So, there are certain elements, keep this in mind. These are the roots, these are the basics. If you get your basics right, you are not going to get wrong eventually. These are the qualities that a negotiable instrument should have. Now, the property and the rights in the negotiable instruments, property and the rights of that property passes with delivery alone. So you deliver it in a negotiable instrument, the property and rights passes it, or by delivery and endorsing on that, right? The holder of a negotiable instrument, right, can sue another party on his own name, right? For an example, let's the holder of the negotiable instrument is the payee, the person who should receive the funds, the cash, the money. He presents it to the person who should pay. The payee received it from another person. When he presents it for payment from the person to whom, from the person who should pay it, and he doesn't pay it, he need not go to the person whom he received it and tell this story. No, he can go ahead and sue because he holds the bill. That's the second quality. You don't need to give any notice to the person who, the debtor, basically, the person who should pay to give. You can present that, and the debt will be payable on demand, right? And negotiable instrument, right? There is something you learned under law of contracts, that there are certain ingredients that needs to be there in order for a contract to be valid. What you learned as consideration, and then you learned as valuable consideration, if you recall it. Now, agana pratishtava kiyala kiyana. Consideration is pratishtava, valuable consideration is agana pratishtava. So if there is a valuable consideration, if there is a contract, there should be valuable consideration to pass. In negotiable instruments, now you have to, in normal circumstances, you have to prove the consideration, right? He gave me this, or rather, I gave him these goods. That's the consideration. Therefore, he owes me money. He needs to give me 50. I sold him a phone. I gave him a phone. In consideration, I have to get 100,000 rupees. So the consideration you have to prove. But in negotiable instruments, by the fact that you are holding that particular instrument in your hand, that piece of paper, it is presumed that there has been consideration, or the consideration has been passed. This is very vital. So you don't have to prove consideration separately, right? So a negotiable instrument is transferred free of equities, right? I'm not going to discuss it at this moment. I will be discussing it whilst we talk of negotiability, the fact of negotiability and being not negotiable, right? Now, what happened was, there wasn't any law, so to speak, about negotiable instruments, right? What we discussed. So it was practices and the custom. When people, they used to give a negotiable instrument, they say, pay somebody on my behalf. And he gives that. You remember the example I gave you. So, what do you call, in the tea story, right? Tea story, A writes a negotiable instruments and give it to C, right? Say that whatever the money I have to pay you, B will pay. You present this to B. I don't need to send you the money. B will pay you. Now, that's how for all this time this was practiced. In England, when the merchants had their disputes, they went to courts, and the courts, by looking at the customs and the usages, they decided on those disputes based on negotiable instruments. In 1882, the Bills of Exchange Act in the England was enacted. Now, this normally, a law is drafted by the legal draftman division of a government, mainly by lawyers. Now, what is special about the Bills of Exchange Ordinance, or rather Bills of Exchange Act in 1882 in the England, is that it wasn't drafted by any lawyer. It was drafted by a civil servant called Chalmers Mackenzie, one of those brilliant minds, right? He was entrusted in reducing the law, the customs and practices of bills of exchange, which existed then, into a law. It was said that it's been told that whilst drafting the Bills of Exchange Act in the England, he personally scrutinized, read through about 2,500 judgments and cases, right? Just imagine the amount of work, the amount of thought process that went into drafting that. 2,500. Then once he drafted that, it was commended. It was notable. It was commended, and because of that, the amount of the quality of work that was put in, he was even awarded a knighthood. Thereafter he became Sir Mackenzie Chalmers. right? Now, thereafter, what happened was, I'm talking about 1882. That is the time the UK was in the spree of colonizing and invading other countries. When did the British came to Sri Lanka? When was we were invaded? When? Any idea? When did English invaded Sri Lanka? What year? Anyone? Okay. Others? Actually, that was in 1796. In 1815 was the Candian Declaration, right? It was actually 1796, which the British invaded Sri Lanka. 1796. That's about a couple of years after the after they really invaded, they signed this declaration. But even after that, about 80 years almost closer to, they enacted the English Bills of Exchange Act 1882. Remember these things. These are knowledge, invaluable knowledge. Then what happened? What they did was they replicated the same law for all the colonies which were under them at that time. So Sri Lanka, India, Canada, and those countries, we got the same, more or less the same law. About 45 years after that, in 1927, the Bills of Exchange Ordinance was proclaimed here in Sri Lanka, right? But there are a couple of differences as we speak of it today. The Bills of Exchange Act, if in 1882 in England, was subject to some major changes, right? Major changes. But in Sri Lanka, the Bills of Exchange Ordinance was only subjected to some two minor changes. Other than that, it's quite more or less the same. The law there and the law here. And also, there is a clause to say that all English case laws, wherever there is a similarity, is applicable here in Sri Lanka as well. So that has force of law in Sri Lanka. English cases with regard to bills of exchange. Keep that in mind. So even in courts, what we do, we use English judgments in English courts with related to the disputes of bills of exchange in Sri Lanka, even to date, right? Can anyone now? There are two things. There are on those payment methods you mentioned. There are certain examples. You all need to give me now. Write down examples of negotiable instruments. Examples. So I'm telling you, check is an example of negotiable instruments. What are the other examples? Order bills, promissory notes, Think and tell me. Certificate of deposit. Now, those two amendments which I told you with regard to the Bills of Exchange Ordinance in Sri Lanka one was with regard to crossing on non-negotiability, right? Crossing, and it was added that you can cross as not negotiable. That's why I asked you about the fact of negotiability and non-negotiability. Now, examples would be, of course, checks, bills of exchanges, other bills of exchange, promissory notes, bank drafts, etc. All those. However, certificates of deposits, postal orders, money orders, these instruments are not negotiable. Right? They are non-negotiable instruments. You can't negotiate with. Now, in order to understand that, we need to bear a bill is a negotiable instrument. We need to understand what do you mean by negotiability and what do you mean by transferability, right? Often, keep this in mind. If you want to write this down, you can write it down, because majority of the cases you will forget about this and you will not know the difference. And this is a very vital area that you need to know, especially with regard to your careers, banking, as well as your exam. It goes without saying, right? Now, negotiability doesn't mean transferability, and vice versa. Keep in mind that all negotiable instruments are transferable, and not vice versa. All transferable instruments are not negotiable, right? All negotiable instruments are transferable. All transferable are not negotiable, right? Now, transferability refers to passing of the title. Passing of the title. Example, if I sell my phone to someone, I pass the title to this. Right? I pass the title. Title means the ownership of this to the other person. So he gives me money, I give this to him. If that is the case, this is transferred. The mere change of possession. Possession means santake. Santake venas වෙච්ච පළියට මේක අයිතිය වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? For an example, if this was stolen from me and the person who stole this sells it to another person, right? And let's say it goes on in the chain. It never loses the title. I never loses the title of that phone because I am the true owner. So it's the transferability is not affected there, although the possession was affected, right? So we talk about the quality of the title, right? In negotiability, quality of the title. What is the quality of the title I have for this, right? Now, for an example, in the ownership of this phone can only pass from me to another person if there is an element of intention. If I want to pass the ownership of this, I need to have intended to pass this. Otherwise, the ownership doesn't pass us. Santhakaya vitarak pramanavat wenne naha. Right? So, insofar as this is concerned, this is a non-negotiable instrument. Non-negotiable. Right? It's a non-negotiable. This is not negotiable. This is transferable, but not negotiable. Right? Non-negotiable. Keep that in mind. it has to pass, the title has to be passed free of equities, right? Now, let's say a banknote, a bank, not a bank draft, don't confuse yourself. Let's say a check, a bearer check, right? It's a negotiable instrument. I can negotiate the title with somebody else. If it's lost or stolen and comes to the possession of a person, let's say, possession of a person who gets it in good faith, without the knowledge of any previous defects. Without the knowledge of any previous defects, he gets a good title. So that promise, that check is negotiable. That title the original owner had was passed with the check to the other party who is holding it. So by possession of it, in good faith, in good faith, සන්තකයේ තිබීම පමණක් ප්‍රමාණවත්, right? That is the difference of transferability and non-negotiability. If you didn't understand any area, ask me, I will explain it again. All understood. If you don't understand, get this correct and on this first instance itself. Otherwise, it's going to be okay. Others, how about others? Okay, let me explain it again. Right? Listen very carefully. Negotiability is different from transferability. Transferability only looks at passing of the title. Passing of the title. For a title means ownership. Mage තියෙන අයිතිය පවරන්න මගේ කැමැත්ත තියෙන්න ඕන. මගේ කැමැත්ත නැත්නම් අයිතිය පවරන්න බෑ. Right? So transferability. You sell a vehicle, you have to sign it to show your intention that you want to transfer. If your vehicle was stolen, your ownership doesn't change. Ownership remains intact, right? So transferability talks about the fact of transferring the ownership or the title. But negotiability talks about the quality of the title. Right? So like I said, if there are to be a transfer of title of a non-negotiable instrument, non-negotiable. So these are non-negotiable instruments. Goods and all these are non-negotiable instruments. I cannot negotiate the title. I cannot negotiate the quality of the title. Let's say your vehicle was stolen and it was sold somewhere else in the country to another party, despite the fact that he didn't know it was a stolen vehicle and he buys it, maybe even good faith, fine. The title doesn't pass. Right? Those are lost or stolen goods. Title remains with me, the original owner. But banknotes are different. Let's say, assume a check. I write a check. I lose it. Maybe I dropped it somewhere. Write a check, a bearer check, cash check, whatever. I lose it. Right? Somebody else picks it up. And he goes to the store and buys certain goods and gives this check to that person, seller. Seller doesn't know that check, this check which was given to him the person who gave to him doesn't have any ownership of that. That it's stolen or he doesn't have, he is not entitled to that. එතකොට කඩේ මිනිස්සයා දන්නේ නැහැ මේක අහුල ගත්ත චෙක් එකක්ද මොන චෙක් එකක්ද කින්දමන්ද. Right? So it's different. However, then I am the original owner who wrote the check. I lost it. Somebody else took it, went to the shop, bought some goods, gave the check. Now that seller gave some goods in consideration and he took the check. He takes the check without any defect of the prior title. අර හොරෙන් ගත්ත මිනිස්සයාට අහුල ගත්ත මිනිස්සයාට පූර්ණ අයිතිවාසිකමක් නොතිබුණාට, although he didn't have a proper title or ownership to that check, I as the seller gets proper class 1 ownership to that check. Understand? He gets class 1 ownership. So that's the negotiability, the quality of passing the title. You understand? Quality of passing the title. Right? So all transferable things are not negotiable. All negotiable things are transferable. Check is transferable. They are negotiable as well as transferable. Any questions? Any questions on negotiability and transferability? You're welcome. Right? Now, I'm going to take you to, we are not going to discuss the entirety of the Bills of Exchange Ordinance. Neither we are going to discuss about everything today. I'm going to give you a kind of a flavor as to the main components or just a provision, just a taste of the Bills of Exchange Ordinance. What I'm going to tell you now, you need to by heart this and pray like a mantra if required. It's this. You all can see this screen. Section 3, the most important section across Bills of Exchange Ordinance. I recommend all of you all to have at least e-version or an electronic version of the Bills of Exchange Ordinance, right? Because you will be needing this throughout your not only exam curriculum but throughout your banking career and life, right? Now, what is section 3? It is the definition given of a bill of exchange, right? Bills of exchange. If you turn, you can even get a electronic version. I will Bills of Exchange Ordinance, right? Interpretation, section 3, form and interpretation. Read this very carefully. A bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to owe to the order of a specified person or to bearer. Now take a couple of minutes and read this section once again. Bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time some certain money toward the order of a specified person or to the bearer. So in order for a bill of exchange to be valid and recognized in law, these 5 ingredients is a must. It should be unconditional order in writing, right? And signed by, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person to whom it is given, by whom it is given, to pay a some certain amount of money to be paid now or at a fixed determinable future time. To be paid now or at a fixed determinable future time, right? Specified by that person. Specified by that person, right? I need to log off and log in again. So bear with me, because I need to show you certain things which my this laptop doesn't support. So give me. Just bear with me. Oh, sorry about that. Now, I hope you can hear and see me both. Right? Right, where am I? Right. Where is this? We will go through and see what do they mean by some certain about this particular definition of a bill of exchange. Right? So we will go to the definition now. Bill of exchange, unconditional order in writing, signed by one person to another, etc., etc. Right. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to draw this bill of exchange. Right. Now, my question, unconditional order in writing. So this is the check. Right. This is the check. You let it load. In the check, I'm saying, okay, this is supposed to be a bill of exchange ordinance, right? A bill of exchange, right? I'm saying pay X, right? This is the check, pay X rupees 50,000 if he passes his banker's exam, and I'm going to sign, right? And I'm going to sign. So you will see that in a little while in the screen. Can you all see the screen of the check? Please let me know. Good, great. Okay, fine. Right. 50,000 if he passes his banker's exam. So, is this a bill of exchange? If yes, if is this a bill of exchange, give reasons for your answer. මෙහෙම ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආවා. මොනවාද දෙන උත්තරේ? Thanks. මොනවාද දෙන උත්තරේ? බලමු මොනවාද දෙන උත්තරේ කියලා. උත්තරේ. Is this a okay, first of all, is this a bill of exchange? Yes or no? Give reasons for your answer. Isuri, tell me. Why? Why do you say it's a bill of exchange? It is a check. Okay. It's a check. Now go back to the definition. What are the ingredients of the definition of a check? ඊට පස්සේ මම අහනවා look at this which I put it down. All these are fulfilled. Is it fulfilled? Huh? What is this then? What do you call this? What do you call this? This. You will see this now. What is this? The highlighted area, it will be highlighted. You can see that. If he passes, pay X 50,000 rupees if he passes his banker's exam. So paying 50,000 is dependent on what? Him passing the banker's exam. Right? If he passes his banker's exam. Right? What is that then? As per what we learned. What is that? What? Is it not a condition? මේක condition එකක් නෙමෙයිද? මේක කොන්දේසියක් නෙමෙයිද? මේ රුපියල් 50,000 දෙන්නේ bankers exam එක පාස් වුණොත් විතරයි. Have you ever seen conditional checks? This is not a bill of exchange. Because you failed the first test. Under the definition or the interpretation given under section 3, an unconditional order in writing. Is this unconditional? No, this is conditional. Right? This is a conditional order. Condition based upon passing banker's exam. So this is not a bill of exchange. Did you understand that? And any clarifications? Yes. Any clarifications you require? Right. Then we go to the next. Right. Then we go to the next one. Unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another. Addressed by one person to another. So we come to this now, right? Look at this check. Conditional order in writing. So we will fulfill that condition, right? Pay, let's say, is this a check? Is this a check? Pay Spider-Man 50,000 rupees. කල්පනා කරලා උත්තර දෙන්න. Think and answer. Is that a check? Where is my notes? This is a check. Anyone say this is not a check? Everybody say this is a check. Mostly like a petty cash voucher. Yeah, okay, fine. You need the date. What's the date? Let's say this is the happy now. Don't expect me to write all the barcodes, the check numbers to the logos to this and that and printed by which company, etc. We are focusing on certain principles on bills of exchange, right? Therefore, according to the definition, we are still under section 3. First, we said it's an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another. So it goes on to say, so as per that definition, right, which we discussed, whatever that we discussed up to now, does this amount to a bill of exchange or no? It's a simple question. Think. We shouldn't be parrots just to read it and think. What do you all think? So we think. Spider-Man. Who is Spider-Man? Spider-Man. Existing. Fictional. How would it fulfill the condition of addressed by one person to another person? Is Spider-Man a person? Instead of Spider-Man, I can have anything, right? So Spider-Man is there. Spider-Man may be fictional. Whatever is Spider-Man. Or maybe if you get something like this, check if somebody comes to the branch and gives you this, will you pay? Pay Donald Duck 50,000 rupees. So when a definition, that interpretation under section 3, that's why I said this is the most important section comparatively in the Bills of Exchange Ordinance 1927. When they say addressed by one person to another, right? Addressed by one person to another, we talk about actual persons, not fictional persons. If it's a fictional person, then it's not a valid bill. It's not a valid bill. Do you understand? Keep that in mind. So it should be an actual person. Any questions on up to now? I'm going very slowly on this because these are Very sharp areas we need to clearly understand. Understood that? If not, tell me. Right? Okay. Then we say okay, bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it. That's quite clear, which means if this is not there, right? If this is not there, you can't deem that as a bill of exchange, right? If the signature is not there. Right? Bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, right? Let's say Rangaliyanage, signed by the person giving it. If you have a seal instead of a sign, is it valid? No, you can't. It doesn't amount to a bill of exchange. Right? Got it? Fine. Any questions no, thus far? No. Then we come to signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. Some certain, all right, pay on demand or fixed or determinable future time. Fixed or determinable future time. Pay on demand or fixed or determinable future time. If I say here, so there is a sign also, the date is there, pay Rangaliniki 50,000 rupees, right? When Sri when Sri Lanka's GDP becomes equal to USA. If a bill of exchange is written like this, you will see that in the screen in a moment. Pay Rangaliniki 50,000 rupees when Sri Lanka's GDP becomes equal to the USA GDP. Right? Is this a bill of exchange? Is that a bill of exchange? Tell me yes or no, and reasons for your answer, not just why not? Why not? ඇයි නැහැයි කියන්නේ? Is that a condition? condition එකක් ගැනද කියන්නේ? Condition එකක් නම් if වෙන්න ඕනේ නේද? There should be an if, right? When there is a condition. What do you think? This is unconditional. Insofar as bills of exchange ordinance is concerned, this is unconditional. Then what? What is the issue with this? No. This is a very good. Hirusha or Hirusha. This is not payable on demand, neither this is payable on a determinable future time. Not, no, that's not the case. Why do you need the foreign rate? Right? Just because we mentioned US doesn't mean I'm going to give this to someone else, right? So that is there. And with regard to exchange rate, don't worry about that. The learning outcome here is this is not determinable future time. You cannot, as of a certain, determine that when would Sri Lanka's GDP becomes similar to US GDP, or else I can say or give any other what do you call example on this, right? The idea of it being is, right, let's say when, let's say this Lanka becomes or else rupees when we achieve world peace. Look at this. Pay X amount of money, right? Pay X amount of money when we achieve world peace. Negotiable instrument? No, because the time limit, time scale, that particular timing is uncertain. We wouldn't know when or would, if at all, the world there would be peace, world peace, right? So it doesn't amount to a fixed, not payable on demand, of course, and neither fixed determinable future time. What if I say after is this a bill of exchange? Wait, I just changed the wait. Is this a bill of exchange? Pay 50,000 rupees on or after 28th February 2021. Yes or no? Is this a bill of exchange? Yes or no? Don't worry too much. Why is that? Because you can determine when to pay it, right? After 28th February 2021. You can determine that very clearly. Then we go further. So a bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, we passed, signed by the person giving it, passed, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time, some certain in money, some certain in money, some certain in money. අපි දැන් එනවා මෙහෙම. Let's say මට කියන්න මේක bill of exchange එකක්ද නැද්ද කියලා. Pay pay, let's say my daughter, let's say Shania, sufficient funds to complete a degree any date after 28th February 2021. Pay my daughter Shania sufficient funds to complete her degree any date after 28th February 2021. Is this a bill of exchange? Yes or no? Reasons for your answer. Why not? Because no certain amount should be certain. You can't say there cannot be any ambiguity. Very good. There cannot be any ambiguity whatsoever when you are writing a bill of exchange. This is a pay order or whatever you want to call it or anything else, but not a bill of exchange. This can be regarded as a kind of an instruction to the bank, but this is not a bill of exchange, right? Good. Then we go to the last condition. So bill of exchange, we know, is an unconditional order. There should be an unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person who is giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand. Some pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. Some certain in money. We ticked all those past. Money. money to or to the order of a specified person or to bearer. Or to the order of a specified person or bearer. අපි දැන් මෙහෙම කියනවා. Pay Shanta Pereira or order rupees 50,000. Is this a bill of exchange? Or no? Give reasons for your answer. Pay Shanta Pereira or order rupees 50,000. When you look at this, all ingredients of the definition under the bills of exchange ordinance is covered. It should be an unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person who is giving it, some certain amount of money to be payable on demand or at a fixed determinable future time to the order of the person payable or to the bearer. Some certain amount to or to the order of a specified person. So this is payable to Shanta Pereira. එහෙම නැත්නම් or to order or to his order. So is this a bill of exchange? Yes or no? Is this a bill of exchange or no? Hello. I need your answers for this. Does this amount to a valid bill of exchange under the Bills of Exchange Ordinance, fulfilling the conditions under Section 3, which is the definition for bills of exchange? Oh no, simple question. Pay Shanta Pereira or order rupees 50,000. I can see your responses. Anyone? No? Others? Why not? Why not? Why not? These are the important areas we need to identify, not just reading what is there in the tute and the and. I make a bill of exchange ordinance a bill of exchange එකක් නොවන්නේ. I make a විනිමය bill පතක් නොවන්නේ. Why? We are two specified people. Yes. Rashmi, I get that. It is an order check. So, is this, yeah, it's an order check. This is a bill of exchange. Is that what you are saying? Those who said it's not a bill of exchange, valid bill of exchange. Why? There are no two specified persons. It says Shanta Pereira or to his order. Shanta Pereira ho anakaruta. Given unqualified order to pay. Unqualified order. What is the unqualified? So it should be unqualified, right? Unqualified means unconditional. If it's an unconditional order, it's a valid bill of exchange. What didn't you all understand in this? You all have to understand this because I'm going to go for a further gray area. Not gray area, but a further area which you need more thinking. I can't go there unless we get this correct. If you all can unmute and ask, you can unmute and ask. Whoever who wants a clarification, who didn't understand this, please unmute and ask or post your question. I'd rather want you to unmute and ask. Is this a valid bill of exchange or no? With what do you call comparing it with the ingredients as required by Section 3 of the Bills of Exchange Ordinance. I need your responses, otherwise I would know where you stand, what your understanding on this. Difficult for me to proceed further. This is a valid bill of exchange. All ingredients required under Section 3 is met here. Example, let's say instead of order, this says bearer. Order වෙනුවට තියෙනවා bearer. ඒ කියන්නේ අනකරුවට නෙමෙයි කියන මේ හෝ රැගෙන එන්නාට. Bearer is රැගෙන එන්න. Does it become invalid? Is this invalid then? Does this become invalid? It is valid. Now tell me. Take a couple of minutes, Read this clearly, carefully, and tell me whether this is a valid check or no. Valid bill of exchange or no. Wait. Is this a valid bill of exchange or no? Pay cash. Is this valid or no? What are you all thinking so much? Please, I'm waiting for your responses. Why not valid? No name of the payee. No name of the payee. It's a cash check. Then what are cash checks? No specified person, so your answers are right. Then what do you mean by a cash check? Cash checks you'll use cash checks, right? What are cash checks then? Can anyone answer this? Isuri, Oshini, Irusha. Cash checks are open checks. Cash checks are open checks. What are open checks? I have a memo. As per the law. What are open checks, Rashmi? What? Okay. Yeah, don't think I am shooting the messengers or anything. Yeah, we are trying to have a discussion and a conversation here and trying to develop our knowledge of law. Oh, you all are bankers. I can see that from your answers, right? No specifications whatsoever on the law. කොහොමද මේක දුන්නම දෙන්නේ නැද්ද over the counter? Over the counter එහෙම දෙන්න නම් කොහොමද තියෙනවනේ? What do you mean? What specific ingredient do you need to? You do not have to have a bank account. Fine. I'm asking you when you say this. Okay, I take this check and I give it to you. You are in the teller, right? I give it to you to get this 50,000. I come to you, right? Be careful. I visit the banks and the branches, right? Some of you all know me, some of you all don't know me. And I check, right? The knowledge levels, right? Because sometimes I get mixed feelings. I get some haunting feelings, right? With the responses that I have received. So I come to you when you are in the teller with this check like this, something similar to this, right? And then what do you call? Present this. Will you give me 50,000? Oh no. Somebody raised the hand. Yes. You can unmute and talk. Yep. What's it? What if I come like this to the branch and ask for cash? Will you give me cash? No? Yes or no? Your bankers here. No idea? Dina? Kashmi? Yes, since it's not crossed. Ah. Ah. Others? I have closer to 50 here. Only couple of your answers. So if I come something like this and gives it over the counter, you will give me cash. Good, good, good. Good to know. Because understand this and understand this very well. Don't ever, ever forget. This is not a valid bill of exchange. You cannot give or treat this as a valid bill of exchange. Why? Because there is no specified person. Cash is not a person. Cash is not a person, right? Addressed by one person to another. So this is not another person. Cash is not a person. Yeah, so it fails the definition of a bill of exchange. If that is the case, why would you call it an open check? These are the terminology the bankers use, right? You can encash it over the counter. You don't have to have an account. Correct. All these are right. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is whether this fulfills the conditions of Section 3 in the Bills of Exchange Ordinance. No. Therefore, you cannot pay this over the counter, under the counter, whatever. Why? Because it fails Section 3. But what happens is when you go to work on Monday, if you are behind the teller or you are the teller, you check what a cash check looks like. The cash check what you are getting is not like that. The cash check what you are getting should look like this. The cash check which you get should look like this. Wait for it. Essentially, according to the eyes of law, there is nothing called a cash check. It's just practice. But the practice is such that we have forgotten over a period of time, and now we don't know what a cash check is. This is how a cash check which you would be able to consider as a bill of exchange and cash it over the counter. What's the difference between these two? What's the difference between these two? Yes, Dina, I'm going to pretend that I didn't see that answer. Yes, Minoli. You're correct. Your answer is correct. This is for order. This is to bear. Remember this. This is the most vital. This is the turning point of this becoming the wrong or not a valid, invalid bill of exchange because of this reason, and this becoming a valid bill of exchange because of these two words, right? Because of these two words, nothing else, right? The one at the top, you don't consider or treat it as a valid bill of exchange because it fails section 3. Hari, it fails section 3. Some amount of money, eka hari, fixed determinable future termine on demand, specified amount, addressed by one person to another. So that cash is not a person. To or to the order of a person. So see, to or to the order. To or to the order of a specified person. There is no specified person here. It's cash. So it's not a bill of exchange. Here, it's not to or to the order of a specified person. It is payable to the bearer because of this particular word. This particular word that it becomes valid. Because of that particular word. Bearer. It's payable to the bearer. Anaparidhi tibunot ganna baha. Cash check. Ragane ennata tibunot vitara ganna puluwa. Understand? Clear? And do you all need any clarification on that, what we discussed? This is a complex area. So you need patience and thinking. You just can't read something and understand whatever that is in the bills of exchange ordinance. That's why I'm going step by step, right? Step by step. It's very, very important that you understand the principles. So you get the basics into your head, then you can't go wrong. If you get your basics wrong, then you are done, no matter what you learn. Get the basics. Section 3, print it and paste it on your table or your wall and chant it like a mantra, right? As a Bible verse or whatever, a prayer or whatever, because those ingredients are of so important, right? So important. And you should be able to memorize it and reproduce it without looking at it, but with examples of each and every condition. An unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person who's giving it, to pay on demand or at a fixed determinable future time, a sum certain in money, to the order of a specified person or to the bearer. That's section 3. It's that important. So in the next week, we will go and address section by section, not all, but those vital sections under the bills of exchange ordinance, and see the net outcome of it, what the take home and what we can learn out of this. But before that, I need to make a request from you all. Read the bill of exchange ordinance from section 1 to 20 at least before we sit for the next day. All right. So we can call it a day and we'll meet next week. Have a pleasant evening.